Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're opening up a file that's really something else. Part tragedy, part true crime mystery, maybe even part conspiracy.
We're diving into the story of the 1871 U.S. North Polar Expedition, the USS Polaris.
Exactly. This was supposed to be America's big moment, Plant the flag at the North Pole, show off post-Civil War strength, maybe find that Northwest Passage everyone dreamed about.
Huge ambitions, commercial glory, national pride, all wrapped up in one voyage.
But instead, well,
Oh.
it just collapsed. Accusations flew, murder, mutiny, and then this massive government cover-up that basically held for almost 100 years.
Yeah, and that cover-up is really essential.
Yeah.
When you look at the sources, the official mission was clear, American glory. But our mission today in this deep dive is to figure out what really sunk the Polaris.
Was it just the Arctic? The ice, the cold, the unforgiving environment?
Or was it something darker, human nature under pressure, isolation, ambition, conflict? Did that doom them? That's what we need to unpack.
Okay, so the purpose, as you said, was glorious. America flexing its muscles after the war. And that Northwest Passage dream, that was the key to huge potential riches, wasn't it? Bypassing Cape Horn.
Absolutely. Untold riches. And Captain Charles Francis Hall, the commander, he was the man supposed to deliver this prize.
But right from the start, there were problems, fatal flaws, really, even before they set sail. Hall himself, for instance.
Right. Hall was brilliant in many ways. A self-made man, self-taught explorer, 2 long Arctic voyages under his belt already. Knew the environment. But he wasn't Navy. Not really. He had an honorary title, captain, but no formal training, no academic pedigree. And the scientific establishment back then, it craved that.
So they looked down on him.
Some did, yeah. He was seen by certain people, we suspect, as this sort of unlettered oaf, that lack of a formal background, that perceived gap. It would become, well, lethal.
And it wasn't just about Hall's background. The ship itself, the Polaris, had issues.
Oh, definitely. The planning flaws extended right to the vessel. It was built on the keel of an old steamer, the Periwinkle, narrow keel.
Which is bad for ice.
Very bad. You want a ship with a wide beam, thick waist. When the ice squeezes, that shape forces the ship up like popping a seed out of a grape. Protects the hull.
But the Polaris.
The Polaris, being narrow, was destined to be gripped, held fast, and eventually crushed. Structurally, it just wasn't the right design for that extreme environment.
Okay, so a flawed ship, a leader seen as lacking credentials. Let's talk about the crew, because this is where the human element really starts to heat up. The command structure sounds like a recipe for disaster.
It was catastrophic. You basically had 3 captains or high-ranking officers who, let's just say, didn't get along.
Yeah.
Even before they left.
3. Okay, lay them out for us.
You have Commander Hall, the official leader. Then there's Sidney Buddington, the sailing master and ice master. Experienced whaler, new eyes, but apparently terrified of getting crushed and, well, known to drink heavily.
Not ideal in a crisis. And the 3rd.
Assistant navigator George Tyson. And Tyson had this long-standing grudge against the Buddington name, apparently going back years over some local salvage dispute back home.
Seriously. So the top 3 guys basically hated each other before they even saw serious ice?
Pretty much. Commander, second in command, 3rd officer. Intense personal animosity baked in from day one.
Wow. And then you layer on top of that a national divide, American leadership, but the science team was largely German.
Exactly. That added a whole other layer of tension, almost political. The chief scientist was Dr. Emil Bessel, doctor of medicine, philosophy, Heidelberg trained, fiercely loyal to Germany, or Prussia then.
And he didn't like Hall either.
No. Bessel seems to have been the main source of that academic snobbery towards Hall. And here's a key point. Bessel never took the required oath of loyalty to the U.S. Navy.
Wait, really? The chief scientist wasn't sworn in?
Apparently not. His loyalty was elsewhere. And the crew split right down those lines. Americans backing Hall and the mission, Germans backing Bessel.
If Hall was already feeling insecure about his status, how quickly did this resentment boil over into actual insubordination?
Almost immediately. Even before they properly left Greenland at Disco Island. Hall ordered Friedrich Meyer, the meteorologist, another Prussian military graduate, not to go ashore for some unauthorized readings.
And Meyer just went anyway.
He defied the order openly. And then, according to testimony later, Dr. Bessel stepped in, very smoothly, and basically told Hall, Mr. Meyer is under my orders. He's part of my scientific corps.
That's not just ignoring an order, that's setting up a rival command.
Precisely. It got so bad that Captain Davenport, from the Navy supply ship Congress that was still there, had to step in just to restore some semblance of order. before the main mission even started.
Unbelievable. It shows Hall had basically lost control already.
And this internal conflict seems linked to some critical logistics failures too, almost like sabotage. For example, they neglected to do the proper compass deviation tests.
Why was skipping the compass calibration such a big deal?
It meant their navigation was unreliable from the start. The ship's iron hull affects the compass needles. You have to calculate that deviation to plot an accurate course. Without it, they were essentially sailing blind into the high Arctic. It also gave Tyson constant ammunition to criticize Buddington's navigation skills.
Okay, that's bad. But you mentioned sabotage.
Well, consider this. Hall had specially modified one of the ship's boilers so it could burn seal blubber or whale oil. Crucial backup fuel in the Arctic where coal runs out.
Makes sense. Smart planning by Hall.
Except that special boiler was somehow mysteriously thrown overboard while they were at disco. Gone.
Thrown overboard. You don't accidentally do that.
Highly unlikely. And without that backup fuel source later on, Buddington's group actually had to start burning parts of the ship itself to stay warm. Someone, it seems, wanted that alternative fuel gone.
Okay, the situation is primed for disaster. Fast forward to October 1871. They've sailed further north than any Western explorers before. Hall's pushing on, but the tension with Buddington and Bessel is sky high. Then Hall comes back from a sled trip.
Comes back, seems fine, drinks a cup of coffee prepared in the galley, and almost immediately collapses. Violent vomiting, delirium.
And crucially, he starts accusing people.
Yes, loudly. Accusing crew members of plotting against him, of poisoning him, right then and there.
And the ship's doctor, the chief scientist, is Dr. Bessel, the German scientist who dislikes Hall. His medical treatment. Well, let's just say it raised his eyebrow.
Questionable is putting it mildly. Bessel's own notes are strange. He recorded Hall having paralysis on his left side, but later Hall apparently showed strength in that same hand, physically blocking people from his cabin.
And the medicine Bessel gave him.
When Hall first collapsed, Bessel gave him castor oil and 4 drops of croton oil. Both are incredibly powerful purgatives, designed to violently sludge the digestive system.
Hang on. If Hall suspected poison, wouldn't you want him to vomit it out, not flush it deeper into his system with purgatives? Wouldn't that just increase absorption?
That is exactly the concern. That's the interpretation that makes Bessel's actions look incredibly suspicious. If it was poison, the treatment might have actually ensured the toxin did maximum damage, speeding it through his system. Not treating the poison, but maybe supercharging it.
Chilling. And there was a point Hall seemed to get better.
Yes, briefly. When he refused any more medicine from Bessel and would only eat food prepared by his trusted Inuit friend Tukalito, a clear sign of who he trusted, he started to recover.
But it didn't last.
Tragically, no. Someone, perhaps Bessel or Buddington, convinced him to resume Bessel's care. He relapsed almost immediately and died on November 8, 1871.
The description of his burial is haunting. Deep Arctic winter, total darkness.
Yeah, they buried him on land at a place they called Observatory Bluff. And as they did, the Aurora Borealis, the northern lights, flared up dramatically across the sky.
Beautiful, but eerie.
For the white crew, yes. But for the Inuit guides, Tukalito and Ibir Bing, the lights are the Nalukaviat, the spirits of the dead, particularly those who died violently or were murdered. They believed the spirits were restless, crying out for vengeance. They had no doubt Hall's spirit was up there among them.
Powerful image. And back on the ship, the men Hall had accused didn't waste any time.
No. Buddington was now in command. He was apparently overheard saying something like he was relieved of a great load, and Hall's papers, his journals detailing all the conflict and insubordination, they were seized almost immediately.
Covering their tracks.
Seems like it. Tyson later testified that Buddington admitted he got Hall, while he was delirious, to burn papers that were much against him, destroying evidence right on his deathbed.
So with Hall gone and Buddington in charge, what happened then? Utter breakdown.
Pretty much. Hall, whatever his faults, was a driven leader. Buddington's command just dissolved.
Yeah.
Discipline vanished. There was heavy drinking officers were apparently stealing the ethanol meant for scientific specimens.
Shrinking the science supplies. Oh, boy.
Yeah. And the German scientists, Bessel and Meyer, just continued being aloof, insubordinate, refusing routines. It was chaos.
And this went on for nearly a year, until the next major crisis in October 1872.
Right. The ship got caught in the ice again during a fierce storm. This time the ice pressure was immense. The hull was groaning, starting to give way. Real danger.
So, panic stations. How did the crew end up getting separated? Was it just an accident in the storm or something more deliberate? Buddington getting rid of Tyson, perhaps?
It's still debated. But in the chaos, Buddington ordered a group of 19 people onto a large nearby ice floe to save supplies, maybe lighten the ship. This group included Tyson, the meteorologist Meyer, and crucially the Inuit guides Tukulito and Eberbing and their families.
And then the ship just left them.
Suddenly, yeah, the lines connecting the ship to the floe parted, or accounts differ, and the Polaris drifted away rapidly into the storm and darkness. Whether it was accidental panic or deliberate abandonment by a possibly drunk Buddington trying to ditch his main critic Tyson, the result was the same. 19 people stranded on an ice floe.
Unbelievable. But you mentioned Tukulito.
Yes, Hull's loyal friend. In that moment of separation, as she scrambled onto the ice, she managed to grab and save one small wooden box. It contained Hull's private letters, papers he'd entrusted to her. A small act of loyalty amid total collapse.
And that party, Tyson's group, faced an unimaginable ordeal, drifting on an ice floe.
One of the most incredible survival stories ever. They drifted for 196 days, over 1,500 miles across the freezing Atlantic.
How did they even survive?
Barely. They ate frozen sealskin, seal blood, raw blubber when they could catch seals. At one point, things got so desperate, some of the men started breaking up one of their two whaleboats for firewood. Tyson, who was unarmed, couldn't stop them. Discipline was completely gone.
Just pure survival mode adrift.
Completely at the mercy of the currents. Until finally, miraculously, in April 1873, they were spotted and rescued by a sealing ship, the Tigris, off the coast of Newfoundland.
Once they were rescued, Tyson must have had quite a story to tell.
Oh, he did. He testified forcefully at the official Navy inquiry. He accused Buddington point-blank of deliberately abandoning them on the ice, and he repeated his suspicions, accusing both Buddington and Bessel of foul play in Hull's death a year earlier.
Strong accusations, murder and deliberate abandonment on a U.S. Navy expedition. How did the Navy react?
They buried it. The Secretary of the Navy at the time, Robeson, clearly wanted this whole disaster swept under the rug. National image, prestige, all of that.
So they just dismissed Tyson's testimony.
Pretty much. The official conclusion was that Hull died naturally from disease. The abandonment was portrayed as an unavoidable accident of the storm. They commissioned this huge 686-page official account by Admiral Davis, which historians now call a massive whitewash. Heavily edited, suppressing the truth.
How could they ignore such direct testimony, though, about murder? About being left to die on the ice?
Politics, I suppose. Admitting the truth meant acknowledging a catastrophic failure of command, possible murder of an American officer, maybe by foreign nationals on a U.S. ship, potential sabotage. It was easier for Robeson and the Navy to just create a narrative of bad luck and Arctic hardship.
So the official story held for nearly a century. But the truth didn't stay buried forever, did it?
No. The Arctic itself held the final piece of evidence. In 1968, nearly 100 years later, a biographer got permission to go back to Greenland and exhume Hull's body from his frozen grave.
Exhume the body after a century in the permafrost.
Exactly. His body was remarkably well preserved by the cold. While the internal organs were gone, they were able to take samples of his hair and, crucially, his fingernails.
And analyze them.
Using a then-new technique called neutron activation analysis. Incredibly sensitive. It can detect trace elements absorbed into growing hair and nails over time. They were looking for one thing in particular.
Arsenic.
Arsenic, and they found it.
What did the tests show?
They were definitive. The analysis revealed, and I quote, an intake of considerable amounts of arsenic in the last 2 weeks of life. The base of his fingernail, representing his condition just before death, contained 76.7 parts per million of arsenic.
Which is a lot.
An enormous, fatal amount. It confirmed exactly what Hull himself had suspected and cried out about while delirious. He was poisoned.
Wow. So a century later, the science proved the official Navy story was a lie. Hull was murdered.
The evidence points overwhelmingly that way, and it points back strongly towards Dr. Emil Bessel. We know Bessel later tore pages out of expedition diaries, pages relating specifically to Hull's death and the separation of the ice party. Convenient.
He got the command he wanted in the end.
He did, effectively. Buddington was inept, so Bessel and Meyer largely ran the scientific side, which was what they cared about. Ironically, Bessel himself proved ill-suited to the Arctic, suffered badly from snow blindness, something Hull, the unlettered oaf, never did. Bessel's ambition, his clear disdain for Hull. It seems it led directly to murder.
It's such a stark, chilling conclusion. The Polaris Expedition failed, fundamentally, not because the Arctic was too harsh, but because the human conflicts were too toxic.
Exactly. The isolation, the pressure cooker environment, it didn't create the jealousy, the insubordination, the paranoia, but it amplified them to a deadly level. These moral failures, this human darkness, proved far more destructive than any ice floe.
So the takeaway for us looking back is that even in these grand pursuits of glory in science, basic human failings can bring everything crashing down.
Absolutely. And maybe there's one final thought to leave you with. Despite the official Navy denial lasting a century, the evidence is clear. Charles Francis Hall, an American explorer, was murdered, likely by his German chief scientist, Dr. Bessel, who took no oath of loyalty to the U.S. So if the expedition's only goal was American glory, planting the U.S. flag, why was the senior scientist from a rival power, Germany, seemingly so determined to eliminate the American leader? Even risking his own reputation with a clumsy poisoning and cover-up. You have to wonder, was Dr. Bessel's real mission purely scientific? Or was there something more sinister at play, tied to national rivalries and derailing American ambitions in the strategic high north? Something the history books still haven't fully answered.